Hello students, today we're going to be continuing with our understanding of proportions. Some class periods were able to get to this worksheet yesterday, and some of us were not. So what I'm going to have y'all do is go ahead and skip questions 1, 2, and 5. I did work through some of these with a couple of these class periods, but if I did not get to this worksheet with y'all, just go ahead and skip questions 1, 2, and 5 for now. I really want us to focus on going through questions 3, 4, and 6 together, and then I want y'all to do 7 and 8 on your own. So let's go ahead and jump right into question number 3. All right, so our scenario says, in 2014, the number of home run hits by the LA Dodgers accounted for 6% of the 583 total home run hits in the MLB. Approximately how many home runs did the LA Dodgers hit? Okay, so in this proportion, we are given our percent, and we are given the total, or whole, right? And it's asking for the portion of the home runs hit by the LA Dodgers. So when setting up this proportion, we have our, of course, part to whole relationship. And the part to whole that we know is our percentage, which is 6 out of 100. And the whole that we have, that we're given in the question, is 583. Now we need to find the portion of the home runs made by the LA Dodgers. I know that I cannot scale evenly from 100 to 583. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and cut 6 100ths in half. I'm going to reduce down as small as I can go. 50, 3 over 50. Again, I know I still can't scale from 50 to 583. So what I'm going to do is I am actually going to cross multiply 3 and 583, and then I'm going to go ahead and divide by 50. Now, when I cannot scale evenly from after reducing my initial ratio, this is kind of my go-to option, is to just cross multiply and divide. It's going to get me to my answer every single time. So let's go ahead and do that math real quick. This is going to be a big number, but we can do this math. So let's go ahead and do 583 times 3. I'm going to work this up here. 583 times 3. Let me erase this one really quick. Okay. Okay, so I know 3 times 3 is 9. I know 3 times 8 is 24. I'm going to carry my 2. And 3 times 5 is 15, plus my 2 is 7. So now I have 1,749 that I'm going to try and divide by 50. Okay. So I know 50 can't go into 1, and it definitely can't go into 17. So I'm just going to add zeros up here. I know 150 is going to go into 174 3 times, which is 150. And then I'm left with 24, and I'm going to drop down my 9. Okay, so now I'm trying to figure out how many times 50 goes into 49, excuse me. Now I know 50 goes into 400 4 times, because 50 times 2 is 100. So I'm going to go ahead and put 4 up here, which is 200, and I'm left with 49, okay? And then I would end up having to add a decimal 0 and bring my decimal up, drop my 0 down. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that they were able to hit, the LA Dodgers were able to hit about 34 home runs. It's obviously not going to be perfect, and some of our proportions aren't going to give us a whole number. So just for time's sake, I'm going to go ahead and just round us to 34 home runs for that answer there. Okay, and just to review, we were given our percentage in the question, which is 6%. So I wrote down that relationship, 6 over 100. That's the part to whole relationship that I know. And I made it equal to my total, which was 583. I knew I couldn't go from 100 to 583 evenly, so I reduced down to 3 over 50, and then I cross multiplied and divided by 50 to get my answer. Moving on to question number 4, it says 2 of the dozen eggs in a carton are cracked. About what % of the carton is not cracked? Okay, so if 2 out of a dozen eggs, which is 12 by the way, in a carton are cracked, the number of eggs that would not be cracked in my carton is 10, because 12 minus the 2 that are cracked is 10. So the part to whole relationship that I have here is 10 out of 12 eggs. And it wants to know the percentage. The question is asking about my percent. So that means that I need to make my 12, my total, equal to 100, because a percentage is always out of 100. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my initial ratio, because I know I cannot go from 12 to 100 evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and scale down to half. I'm going to cut this in half to 5 over 6. And yet again, I cannot go from 6 to 100 evenly, cannot scale evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply and divide again. I'm going to cross multiply my 5 with my 100, which gets me 500. And then I'm going to divide by 6. I know 6 can't go into 5, but it does go into 50 8 times, which is 48. 50 minus 48 is 2. I'm going to drop my 0 down. 6 times 3 gets me really close to 20, which would be 18. And it looks like I'm starting to repeat. So if I added a decimal 0 and dropped that down, I would still get 20. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be about 84%. Around 84% of my carton would not be cracked. Okay, again, just to recap, I took my part to whole relationship that I know. 10 out of 12 eggs would not be cracked in this container of a dozen eggs. I simplified my ratio down to 5 over 6. Because I couldn't scale properly or evenly from 6 to 100, I cross-multiplied 5 and 100 to make 500, and then I divided by 6 and got about 83%. 84% is what I rounded up to. Okay, and for our last question that we're going to do together, I would actually like for you to skip question 6 as well, just because 6 is a very ugly problem, and it would just be more confusing than helpful at this time. So we're going to skip question 6 as well and just move straight to question 7, and you'll end up doing question 8 by yourself on your own. So for question 7, it says a nutrition label states that there are 36 grams of carbohydrates in each serving. This accounts for 12% of a daily value. How many grams of carbohydrates are recommended per day? Okay, so let's think about what we have here for our proportion. There are 36 grams of carbohydrates in each serving, and that accounts only for 12% of the daily value. So we need to try and figure out how many grams are recommended for the whole day, meaning that this 36 grams is our part, and the 12% is, of course, our percentage, so we're looking for our whole, okay? So when setting up this proportion, we have a part to whole relationship. The part to whole relationship that we do know is always going to be our percentage if it's given to us, which is 12 out of 100. The part that we have is 36, so the total is what we're looking for, okay? I know that I can scale from 12 to 36 by multiplying by 3, so therefore I'm going to do the same thing down here, and 100 times 3 is going to be 300, and that would be my total for this one, okay? So when working with proportions, It is imperative that you read the question very closely and you try and identify what aspects of your proportion that you have. Do you have the percent? Do you have the part? Do you have the total? And whatever you don't have is what you're going to search for. Okay, so do your very best to solve question number 8 all by yourself. When you're done, please turn it into the basket and then go to your substitute and ask for the next worksheet. And try and do as many problems on the next worksheet as you possibly can because it will count as a quiz grade. Best of luck to you, and I'll see y'all on Monday.